Hey everyone, welcome to a new video, welcome to Floating in Dreams. Today we are going to be talking about my top 5, bottom 5 Catrice products. So let's get started. Welcome if you're new here, welcome if you're a returning visitor. Thank you so very much for joining me today. Yes, today we're going to be chatting about Catrice, which is one of my favorite topics to chat about on this channel. In case you don't know what this channel is all about, I mainly talk about eyeshadow palettes on here, which is why I'm not sure when this video is gonna go live exactly because I'm filming things out of order, but I'm doing eyeshadow palette week this month. So maybe that's still coming up. Maybe by the time you're seeing this, it's already gone live, but at least you either have something to look forward to, or I can link you to some videos in the description box down below. So yeah, eyeshadow palettes, that's my favorite thing to chat about, really. And then we have Essence and Catrice products. That's really what I've been building my channel on almost. Trying out Essence and Catrice products because they update their lines every single 6 months and they are owned by the same mother company. So there's also quite a lot of overlap between the two lines. And last month I did a top 5, bottom 5 with Essence products. And this month we're doing Catrice. In addition to all of those things and what I try out, I don't just want to focus on all the new products that are out. I definitely want to get use out of products, which is why whenever I review products, I've used them for at least a week or two. I go back to old favorites, and when I love something, I truly, truly love it, and it will truly stand the test of time in my makeup collection. So that's where we're coming from with this video today. Let's get to the top 5, bottom 5, and we're doing bottom 5 first so that we can end the video on a high note. Now with Essence and Catrice, I think because there is quite a lot of overlap between the two brands, I also think that they do different, like similar things well and other things not so well. So if you've already seen the Essence video, I may sound a bit like a broken record, but with Catrice and Essence, you should know because they update their lines every single 6 months, they also discontinue a lot of their products, which if you then find a product you love, like this Fresh It Up primer from Catrice, and then they do this, and you always end up a little bit disappointed. So with Essence and Catrice, and especially because both brands now do quite a bit of skincare as well, in the Essence video, I think I actually talked about skincare more so, but Catrice do some really good primers and also some good moisturizers. I've tried a couple of their serums that I like, and then huge bummer, you fall in love with the product, and then you need to scramble to repurchase it so you can still have it in your collection at some point. So this Fresh It Up primer is my favorite primer that Catrice has ever done. It was discontinued 2 years ago. I kept this one sealed in my makeup collection for some time, but then I wanted to see how similar it would be to the Hydrator, which is their newest launch, and they're nothing alike. They're good primers, both of them. I really like this one. But again, this is going to be, you know, especially their primers, they seem to just discontinue left, right, and center. Like all the time, they are discontinuing their primers. And then you find something that's great. By the way, this is a dupe for the primerizer from Smashbox, the Fresh It Up one. And now I'm like, oh, and now I have to use this up because I took the seal off. But yeah, of course, it was an older product. So I understand, and I understand that brands cannot keep things in their collection all the time. But with Catrice and also Essence, they really take the cake when it comes to like discontinuing products so quickly. And I think that the philosophy behind it is that they try to offer products that go with the seasons. So very often what you'll see is, for instance, in their primer launches, that in the like spring summer season, they'll have something that goes more with like spring summer. And then for the fall winter season, they have something that's more appropriate for the fall winter season. So they do try to update the line to go with the seasons, but why not just bring something back that you released earlier? Oh well. Maybe it's just like with some indie brands, I know that sometimes they run out of certain pigments and they can no longer make the products the way they used to. Maybe that's the way that Catrice and Essence run their game as well, that they only buy a certain batch of ingredients and then they run out of those ingredients and they can no longer make the product. Maybe that's behind it, because if that's the case, then that means that they're actually being a bit more sustainable than it looks. But in a way, it always feels like a ploy to get you to just buy more products. But yeah, Essence and Catrice, but especially Catrice primers, are good. I've liked many of them. I've tried a lot, but the reason why I have to try so many is because they keep discontinuing them, which is why it's in my bottom 5. Speaking of Catrice, concealer is also in my bottom 5. This is their One Drop Coverage. Guess what? It was discontinued, but this is my favorite Catrice concealer. So this is, again, still sealed, never been opened, just so that I always have a good Catrice concealer on hand, because I like to do some full face of Catrice makeup looks, and I very often try products out for my first impressions, and then sometimes they don't have all the new products in like a certain category because they're not releasing anything new. So then I always like to have a concealer or a foundation or a powder on hand. So I always have something from Catrice, and this is my favorite one. I know that the liquid camouflage is one that a lot of people always raved about, but I used mine up last year that I had previously, and I was just like, I have completely fallen out of love with that concealer. I used to love it. I think I went through 3 tubes of it, and I absolutely adored it. But the reason why this is a bottom 5 isn't because they are discontinuing this really quickly, but mainly because they haven't really come out with a new product recently that really suits my skin type. So their new True Skin concealer, far too full coverage for my liking. Like it was really crepey on me. It didn't look great. So for me, something lightweight and like liquidy like this just works a lot better. And with Catrice, and we'll mention that as well when we talk about the next product in this bottom 5, but shade ranges can still be bad. It's not as bad as it used to be, but especially in some of the lighter ranges of their foundations, I sometimes struggle to find my shade. Not with their recent releases, those have been okay. But I remember when they released foundations, and the lightest shade would never be light enough for me. And then in the next release, we would get that lighter shade. So sometimes they would like make up for it, but especially with Catrice, especially if you have deep skin, you can really struggle finding something as well. So if you're in the middle, like light to medium to dark, that works. Yeah, that's what they have loads of shades for. But then you go to the other edges of the spectrum, and then they don't have that much. Plus, they really tend to cater to like the full coverage, Instagram, TikTok kind of, if you are 18 and you want a lot of coverage kind of skin. If you're in your late 30s, or even if you're more mature than that, and you want lightweight coverage, then Catrice is just not the brand for you, which is why I hang on for dear life to some of these products that they then discontinue, because I just like dewy lightweight foundations, and Catrice just isn't it. So let's talk about foundation next. This is the True Skin, and the reason why this is a bottom 5 is because I just struggled finding my shade. Finally, the True Skin came in a lot of shades, but I already mentioned this also when I discussed the Essence foundations as well. Catrice doesn't stock all of the shades in stores because they claim there isn't enough space. So you need to go online if you want to go beyond the 5 or 6 shades that they offer, which I think is a pain because that means there's no tester. And so I kind of bought one when they launched. That ended up being too light for me, and it looked really terrible because it was too light. I bought a shade darker. This is 010 Cool Cashmere, and this worked. And then I went back to it and I was like, oh, now I do like you. So this is currently my Catrice foundation of choice to have around. But that being said, it's still not my favorite. My favorite ever Catrice foundation is one that was only around for a hot minute and it didn't launch everywhere. So it's still in a Makeup Memories box, but by now it has expired. I can't really safely use it anymore. But I just keep it around to have the texture so that if they ever decide to come out with something that's more lightweight, dewy, and radiant, it was called the Catrice HD Liquid Radiance foundation. That's my favorite. It's a dropper style foundation, very similar to the HD Liquid that everybody knows, but that had black lettering, the original, and they came out with a more dewy version of it with red lettering, and that is still, till this day, my favorite foundation from Catrice. This, not my favorite, but it's a good enough foundation. It's like a medium coverage. It's just a little bit more than what I want. That's just the way it is. So that's why this is a bottom 5, because it is a bit of a faff to try and find your shade, because they don't do testers in all of them. And like with the concealers, because they discontinue things really quickly, and now they tend to favor just textures that don't really go with my skin. So that's why this is not necessarily my favorite. And now this is going to perhaps be a little bit of a shock because I have been hyping up the 5-in-a-box palettes from Catrice quite a bit, but I'm holding up my favorite one to talk about Catrice eyeshadow formula because it's not that fantastic. These are good, but it's inconsistent. And that's what I wanted to mention here. And that's why Catrice eyeshadows are in the bottom 5 for me. They are not a go-to brand staple for me. I wanted to make sure that my top 5 are things where I'm like, yes, these aren't just good for the price. These are just good, period. And with Catrice eyeshadow, very often it's like, yeah, it's okay. Some of it blends away into nothing, especially if you buy the older style palettes that they used to do. These new 5-in-a-box ones, really, really lovely. I'm holding up Modern Smoky Look, which is a great cool toned taupey leaning with like a steely blue shade, really lovely. And then what do? They release 4 really great palettes. They bring out 2 new ones, and then the formula in the 2 new ones isn't 100% the same. And it's been like that with their Pro Slim line too. So the larger ones that are a little bit more expensive, some of those are really, really lovely, and then others are just trash. So that's why the Catrice eyeshadow formula, they have some really good gems like this one. Like if you buy just one, get this. But it's so inconsistent that you can never, like it's never a blind buy for me. I buy them blindly because I tried them out for the channel, but if you as a regular consumer were like, oh, what's a good eyeshadow formula at the drugstore? I wouldn't say Catrice is like the first thing. I would say Catrice and then that one particular palette that by now you can no longer buy. And then finally in my bottom 5, I want to talk Catrice powders. This is again a category where I'm like, Catrice, there are so many great things that you've done in your powder formula. Like they do, I'm not sure if they still do it, but the Nude Illusion loose powder, for years that was my favorite loose powder on the market. I think I still have one just lying around because it's that good. It's just a staple. I just keep it around. Also their pressed powders, lovely things that they do there. This is one of their newest ones. This is the Old Matte Shine Control powder in the banana shade. But then they start reformulating things, and then they discontinue things, and then you're still unsure of whether something's gonna look great on you. And this is a nice enough powder, but I don't know. I think that by now Essence has beat Catrice when it comes to powder formulas. So I'm much more inclined to keep an eye out on what Essence is doing in their powder lines than Catrice. I will always have one on hand, but they're... Ooh, I'm dropping things. But they used to do the Prime and Fine waterproof powder. I love that thing. And then they reformulated it. And I no longer loved it. So currently my favorite one is this All Matte Plus thing, which they have reformulated because they used to do an All Matte Plus, and that I didn't like as much because it was very much like a powder foundation. Even though it says All Matte Plus, I feel this is still a little bit radiant. So this does have some light reflecting properties. So I do like it. And it's like a very budget-proof alternative to something like a diffused light from Hourglass, even though I think the Kiko one that I'm currently using in my Shop My Stash is much better than this. So yeah, with powder, I think that Catrice, again, their inconsistency isn't helping them in terms of what I love. But then, what do I love from Catrice? And from Catrice, I think, again, in their color, cheek, and lip products, that's where it's at. I think that's actually the main difference here between Essence and Catrice, because in my Essence video, I mentioned how I didn't love Essence lip products because they always smell funky and the textures are a bit weird. But Catrice lip products, hello, they do some really, really good things. I'm currently wearing this on my lips. This is the Better Than Fake Lips Volume Gloss in the shade Lifting Nude. And this thing, I have actually worn almost every single day this month. Like, I keep going back to this. It's like, if I need a very inoffensive, goes with anything kind of lip color, I love this. It's called the Better Than Fake Lips Volume Gloss, so that might make it seem like you go like, oh, maybe it has a tingly feeling and it should plump my lips. No, but it is very hydrating. It doesn't feel sticky. And I really love this. It's a really, really good shade. Comes in 5 shades. I really like it. And that's new. And then they also did these Power Plumping Gel Lipsticks from the Flower and Herb edition. and they did this stunning mauvey pink shade. Really lovely, really like the Power Plumping Gel lipsticks as well. I used one up of these in the shade Speak Up in the past. That's how much I liked it, so that's why I had to mention it. But Catrice also do some good matte lipsticks. Again, formulas that they keep revamping and updating, and they never do the same thing for a very long time. They're currently doing the Vegan Collagen Matte line, which isn't my favorite. The Ultimate Matte line is still my favorite matte line from Catrice. They have since released the Demi Matte line and now the Vegan Collagen Matte line. But yeah, the Ultimate Matte was still my favorite. So I still have a red from that collection that I love. But yeah, this is in the shade Be Fearless, which is a nice, like, darker mauvey nude. And I really like this. This line had some good shades. However, Catrice has not been very adventurous with their shade ranges recently. So that's something that I wish they would do, like that they do some really nice, bright, poppy, like, oranges and corals and pinks, and like they used to do these really out there shades and like deeper berries and stuff, but they've all but just stopped doing them, which is a bit of a shame. Also on my eyes today, this, I cannot do a top 5, bottom 5 Catrice without mentioning a product that I've been using for years, of course. Much like the Essence Make Me Brow, a product I always use is the Catrice Glam and Doll Waterproof. This is their volume mascara. It's in the blue tube, and I use this to top over whatever mascara I'm using. By itself, this really doesn't do all that much, and mine is actually on its last legs. I need to buy a new one. I believe, yeah, the spoolie is also very bent, and it's starting to smell a bit weird. I think this is really sort of, yeah, at the end of its tether. It's like hanging on for dear life. But yeah, I just love using a very volumizing mascara that's perhaps a little bit clumpy. And then this has a spoolie that can really brush through my lashes to separate them a bit more. And because this is waterproof, it really helps against smudging. And then I just use my regular mascara on my top lashes, and then this goes on my bottom lashes. So I use it as a waterproof top coat to prevent any smudging and to separate my lashes a little bit. And then I use this on the bottom lash line, and ever since I've been doing that, I have had zero issues with panda eyes. I can ride my bike to the station in the rain and my makeup will not come off. So this is really good. It's really cheap and cheerful. It's like, what, 3-4 euros. It's lovely, and I just keep buying this. And by now I've actually stopped buying backups of this. It's just, I run out, I go to my local drugstore and I pick a new one up, and they have never discontinued this one. If this ever gets discontinued, I would be so sad. But where it is at for me with Catrice is their cheek products. Like, very much like Essence, actually. Essence and Catrice do some really good cheek products. And not just good products for the price. These compete with high-end. As in, these are only 3 or 4 euros at the drugstore, but they are as good as a Becca or a Dior or a Charlotte Tilbury or whatever, Hourglass, whatever it is. You think of a high-end brand that is known for doing good cheek products, and then bring in Catrice, and you would not tell the difference. You would just not be able to tell the difference. That's how good these are. Catrice did struggle for a very long time, at least I struggled to find it in their line, to find good bronzers. But now they do these, and I believe these are still around. I hope they are, but they've been doing these bronzers. I have both shades because I love it that much. I first bought the darker one of the two. This is the Holiday Skin Bronzer in Off to the Island. And this is my summertime shade. And this is Summer in the City, which is 010, which is the lighter one. And I have set this in my bronzer collection, and I'll say it again right now. I could do away with all of my bronzers in my entire makeup collection and just keep these two. And I have my winter shade, my summer shade. These are great. They smell a little nutty because they're infused with macadamia nut oil. And I feel that this is like the updated version of something like a Physicians Formula butter bronzer, but they have super slim packaging. They come with 8 grams of product, which is a really good amount. I can really see myself going back to these a lot and using them until I hit pan. These are some of the best bronzers I've ever tried, and they are pennies at the drugstore. And the same thing goes for this. the More Than Glow highlighter from Catrice. In March, I filmed a video with products that disappointed me, and there was quite a lot of Essence and Catrice in there too. And then someone left a comment saying, but what about the More Than Glow highlighter? And I was like, yeah, I actually love that one. So if I were to do like a full face of favorite drugstore products, this would definitely get to go in there. This is in Ultimate Platinum Gaze, which is the lightest shade that they did. And this is a dupe for ColourPop's Flexitarian. So if you live in Europe and you don't buy from ColourPop because getting it from the US is a bit of a faff, this is as affordable, and this has an easier to use formula than the ColourPop, because guess what formula this is? I'll let you guess. But very often, you only find this kind of formula in much more high-end brands. This is a gel to powder formula. Dior is known for doing gel to powder. And I feel that texture-wise, this reminds me a lot of my Dior Nude Air Luminizer. So texture-wise, it's up to par with something like a Dior. Shine-wise, color-wise, it's ColourPop's Flexitarian. But at the same time, this is as affordable as, I don't know, you know, something that's just really cheap and cheerful. So I really like this. I really like this shade. I love going back to this. This is such a good formula, and I really, really enjoy this. I remember when I tried this, I was like, right, I can do away with every single highlighter from Catrice that I have, and then some, because this is just, it's not just a good highlighter from the drugstore. It's not a good affordable highlighter. It is a good highlighter that I rate as highly as my Becca and Dior ones. And that's saying something. And finally, also on my face today, because this was in my Shop My Stash the day I filmed this. I'm pre-filming some of these videos before April just to make sure I have some things to go up. But these blush boxes, the Glowing Blush Box Multicolor in the shade Dolce Vita. Now I did declutter the other two that I had. There are 3 shades in this formula, but the one that I reach for the most is this peachy shade. So that's why I decided to declutter the plummy one and the warm pink that I had. But this, I decluttered Milani's Luminoso last year because I have this. Yes, it's that good. The only thing I don't like about these is that the packaging isn't magnetized or doesn't click shut. So I have dug my nail into this like accidentally because it flapped open and then my nail was there. So that's something that you do need to know. The packaging is a bit of a faff, but the shade, I mean, Catrice does really, really good blushes. They haven't really done anything new that excites me for a while, but yeah, Catrice blush, they just do so many really, really good things, which is why it's definitely a top 5 for me as well. So that's it for me for today. Those were my top 5, bottom 5 Catrice products. I hope it made sense. I hope I wasn't too rambly in the bottom 5 part. But yeah, when it comes to Catrice, they can be very hit and miss, but when it's a hit, I fall absolutely head over heels in love with the products, like with those bronzers. Like I bought that shade and it was too deep and I couldn't stop using it. And then I went back out and I bought the lighter shade because I love it so much. So with Catrice, it's just when they do something good, they do something really good, but you have to be very quick jumping on the bandwagon and making sure you get it. Of course, it's also very difficult to tell when they do certain things, especially if you're in the US. You never know. And I believe, I've heard US YouTubers say this, that they are no longer available through Ulta. You can only buy Catrice through the official Catrice US website, which makes it even harder to find. I can just go out to my local drugstore and find Catrice, which is lovely, which is why I do a lot of Essence and Catrice videos, because I tend to have easy access, you could say. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Please give it a thumbs up if you liked it. Subscribe to my channel if you'd like to see more by me. I make 3 new videos a week. As I already mentioned at the start of this video, not sure if it's already gone live or whether this video is gonna go live before it happens. But in April, I am also doing eyeshadow palette week. So stay tuned for more, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye-bye!